The morning sun hovered just above the tree line as if it were waiting to witness the moment my life took a sharp left turn into infested chaos. The lake stretched out before me, lazily shimmering in the early light, a picture-perfect slice of peace and quiet. I stepped out of my truck, boots crunching over gravel, and inhaled the crisp air with the kind of satisfaction you get only after signing a deed that makes you a property owner. And in this case, a lake owner. That still felt strange to think about. A whole lake. Bought fair and square. I hadn't even closed the truck door when I heard it eat the unmistakable sound of fast, furious footsteps. A rhythm of indignation. A tempo of pure hostility. I'd been warned about the HOA president, a woman so dedicated to enforcing rules that some said she once tried to issue a citation to a cloud for, casting an unapproved shadow. But even the warnings hadn't fully prepared me for the reality of Karen Beaumont storming directly toward me. Visor angled like a military badge and eyebrows locked into a scowl that could slice through steel. "What?" she barked. "Do you think you're doing?" Her voice hit like a thrown brick. Sharp, loud, and completely unexpected this early in the morning. I turned slowly, trying to look as non-threatening as a man could while holding a legal folder containing documents she would very much hate. "Morning," I said, giving her a polite nod. "Just taking a look at my lake." Her eyes narrowed, her lips tightening into a thin line. "Your lake," she repeated, as if I just claimed ownership over the moon. "That's right." I lifted the deed folder like a visual aid. "Bought it last week. Posted the notice and everything." She blinked, then blinked again, as though her brain needed a moment to reboot. "Impossible. Absolutely impossible." She took a step closer and jabbed a finger at the water. "This lake is part of the Lakeside Meadows OA community." "Nope," I replied, flipping the deed open and turning it toward her. Turns out the previous owner never transferred the water rights to the HOA. They only leased access. The lake itself, and all the surrounding property, remained private. Her mouth fell open. I could almost hear the error message flashing behind her eyes. "That can't be legal," she sputtered. "It's very legal," I said, tapping the paperwork. She didn't take the deed from me, but she hovered over it like she might try to scorch it into ash using sheer rage. Her gaze flicked back toward the water, then toward the narrow dirt road behind us, the only path between the HOA neighborhood and this lake. "You can't own the access road," she said abruptly, lifting her chin as though daring the universe to contradict her. "We use that road. The community uses that road. Not anymore, you don't." I turned another page on the deed and pointed at the parcel map. "This road, right here. It's part of the land lot I bought." If I had told her I'd personally pushed the moon out of orbit, she would have looked less stunned. The color drained from her face, then flooded back twice as bright. "This," she said, voice trembling with barely contained fury, "will not stand. We have traditions. We have events. We have rights. You have events on property you don't own," I said calmly, "but I'm open to discussing continued access. For a fair fee." Her breath hitched. "A fee? For the HOA to use our lake?" Again, I had to suppress a laugh. "It's not your lake." She crossed her arms tightly, her visor wobbling as she leaned forward. "We have used this lake for over 20 years, for kayaking, fishing, paddleboard yoga, and our annual summer gala. That makes it community property." I shook my head. "That makes it borrowed property." Her nostrils flared. If she'd been a cartoon character, steam would have been blasting out of her ears. "I should have been notified of this," she snapped. "As HOA president, I oversee all community land acquisitions. And yet," I said, closing the deed folder with a soft thud. "There we are." She inhaled sharply, a dramatic, theatrical breath that suggested she was about to launch into a monologue. But before she could unleash whatever verbal storm she'd been preparing, she stopped. Her eyes shifted away from me, scanning the serene surface of the lake. Ducks paddled across it, blissfully unaware of the chaos brewing onshore. "This lake," she said more quietly, "is the heart of our neighborhood." "That's nice," I replied. "But it's still my lake." The silence that followed grew heavy, like the air itself was waiting for an explosion. Karen's expression hardened into something cold and strategic. She straightened her visor, adjusted her pastel cardigan, and took a step back. "You've made a terrible mistake," she said. I shrugged. "I don't think so. You don't know who you're dealing with." I raised an eyebrow. "A woman who likes rules. A community that likes order," she corrected, jabbing a finger at the homes in the distance. "We don't tolerate disruptions. We will fight this, I'm sure," I said lightly. "The ducks are terrified." Her face turned a shade of purple I was fairly certain wasn't medically healthy. Without another word, She spun on her heel and marched back toward the neighborhood, each step radiating pure fury. I watched her go, feeling equal parts amused and uneasy. I'd known buying the lake might stir up some drama, but I hadn't expected the HOA president to take it as a personal attack on her entire way of life. And I definitely hadn't expected her to react as though I'd stolen a royal crown. The morning breeze rustled the trees, and I turned back toward the lake, suddenly aware of just how peaceful the water looked. Nature didn't care about property lines or community bylaws. Everything was quiet, calm, undisturbed. For now, I let out a slow breath, tucking the deed under my arm as I walked toward the shore. Well, I muttered to myself, that could have gone worse. But deep down, I knew it was only the beginning. Karen's parting words lingered in my mind like a warning bell. This isn't over. Of course it wasn't. With an HO president like Karen, it was never over. Not until someone won, and I had just bought the battlefield. The first warning that Karen had discovered my construction plans was not her voice. It was the sudden, violent flapping of her sun visor as she sprinted down the gravel road like an enraged ostrich. I stood beside the contractor's truck, sipping a glass of lemonade, watching her approach with all the subtlety of a storm cloud preparing to ruin a picnic. Behind me, the steady rhythm of the post driver echoed through the trees, clunk, thud, clunk. Each impact sent a vibration through the earth, and apparently straight into Karen's soul. No. Absolutely not. Stop, Tad. She shrieked, waving her arms with such intensity that one might think she was trying to land a plane. The contractors didn't even blink. They were seasoned men, immune to dramatic homeowners. One of them, Earl, a quiet guy with a beard like a fallen Christmas tree, glanced at me. "You sure you want the fence this close to the road?" he asked. "Yep," I replied. "It's my road. Might as well make it official." Karen skidded to a halt between us, planting herself like a furious garden gnome. "You cannot build this fence," she declared, pointing at Earl as if he were personally dismantling civilization. "This is a violation of Lakeside Meadows construction guidelines." Earl looked at me, then back at her. "Ma'am, I'm paid to put posts in the ground. Our stuff ain't my jurisdiction. Fit will be when I report you," she snapped. Earl blinked slowly, scratched his beard, then resumed hammering. The clunk of the next post nearly drowned out the new shrill octave Karen reached. I took another sip of lemonade, savoring the tart sweetness. "Karen," I said calmly, "the fence is on my land. This is all legal." "No, it is not." She whipped out a thick bundle of papers from a tote bag I was positive she kept packed for HOA emergencies. It was bulging with forms, pink citations, highlighter marks, and sticky notes. She thrust it toward me. "You are in direct violation of the HOA aesthetic and structural guidelines. Page 23 explicitly states that all fencing must adhere to the approved community palette and height restrictions. Also, you did not submit a request to the Architectural Review Committee." I raised an eyebrow. "Karen, I'm not in your HOA." She blinked twice, confused. "What? I don't live in Lakeside Meadows. I don't pay dues. I don't follow the HO rules. They don't apply to me." "That's impossible," she insisted. "Everyone here follows our rules. That's why our community is harmonious and orderly." Behind her, a man in board shorts and socks was dragging a squeaky kayak up his driveway, loudly muttering about mandated paint colors. Very harmonious indeed. I crossed my arms. "You keep saying everyone, but you're forgetting one thing. I'm not part of your community." She stared at the ground as if trying to find a hidden clause that would make me magically subject to her authority. Then she snapped up, eyes narrowing. "We have always used that road to reach the lake, for 20 years. "Right," I said. "And now I own the road." A new post thudded into place behind us. Karen flinched. "You're blocking our only access." "I'm aware. What about our summer gala?" she demanded. "It's in 3 days." I pretended to think for a moment. "You could move it, maybe to the community pool." She looked horrified, as if I had suggested holding it in a swamp. "That event is tradition," she said, her voice trembling dramatically. "We set up lanterns along the shoreline. We host dinner by the water. We release floating candles. It's our biggest community celebration, and the access fee is due in 2 days if you want to continue that tradition," I said. $5,000. It covers liability insurance, maintenance, shoreline cleanup, and future infrastructure. Like this very fencer, I worked up and down like she was silently chewing on her rage. "This is extortion." "No," I said. "This is private property." Another post went into the earth, clunk. Karen spun toward the lake, gesturing wildly. "You can't just take away something the community depends on." "I didn't take anything," I replied. If I bought something no one else bothered to. You're being unreasonable. She shot back. You're the one who marched down here screaming because I'm putting up a fence. That fence represents hostility, she cried. It represents boundaries. I corrected. The contractors moved efficiently, lining up the rails along the posts, their quiet work contrasting sharply with Karen's theatrical outrage. She paced back and forth, muttering HOA bylaws under her breath like a spellbook that might curse the construction into dust. Then she abruptly stopped. We can settle this, she said, her voice suddenly syrupy. Perhaps we can negotiate a more appropriate arrangement. I raised an eyebrow, such as, we could allow you to join the HOA. She said, no, you would gain community benefits, she continued, ignoring me entirely. Access to the clubhouse, pool, tennis courts. No, I repeated. Social events. Voting rights. No, her sweetness cracked. Well then, she snapped, we will be filing an injunction. I shrugged. You can file whatever you like. It won't stop the fence. As if on cue, Earl hammered in the final post with a resounding, triumphant thud. The contractors began unrolling the sign de ta. No trespassing. Karen stared at it as though reading her own obituary. She stepped forward, voice shrill. Take that sign down. I shook my head. Nope. This is an outrage. The woods echoed her cry. A flock of birds took flight from the trees above, startled by her volume. Karen dropped to her knees. Actually dropped, hands raised toward the heavens in full operatic despair. Do you even understand? She moaned dramatically. What you are doing to our community. Yes, I said, establishing boundaries that should have been clear years ago. As she glared up at me, betrayal radiating off her like heat from asphalt. You will regret this. Earl walked over, wiping his hands. Fence is done, he said. Looks good. Thanks, I replied, handing him the rest of the payment. Karen watched, stunned, as the men packed up their tools. This isn't over, she whispered bitterly. I know, I said, but it's a good start. As the contractors drove off and Karen trudged away, shoulders slumped in defeat, I turned toward the sparkling lake. The water was still, peaceful, as if completely indifferent to the drama that unfolded on its shore. And for the first time since buying the property, I felt a genuine sense of ownership. Karen wasn't wrong. It wasn't over, but I was ready.